How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of the Barely There podcast. We've got quite a bit to jump into today, but before we get started, I'm Duke Coughlin. You can follow me on Twitter at that pod guy Duke. I'm joined as always by Lucas Perfetti at Lucas Perfetti 46, and be sure to follow the podcast at Barely There Pod. Subscribe, join the conversation on YouTube if you haven't already. And Lucas, it has been a pretty crazy week, honestly. Me and you were both at camp on Friday. We've got a ton to cover when it comes to that. We saw a lot of good things, a couple concerning things, obviously, that are kind of running around Bears Twitter and really the entire fan base, especially with a guy named Teven Jenkins. But Lucas, how you feeling, man? It's like I said, it's been a crazy week, man.
I'm feeling good. Lucky Spag. I don't know if this is one of your buddies. It's a Sox fan, but
thanks for it. Yeah. How's it going, Spag? It's great to join the show.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I'm doing well, man. Cannot complain. We got football tomorrow. Hall of Fame game tomorrow. I think it's Raiders and someone else. Not that important, but yeah, I'm just glad to be officially into football season. There's actually a picture out there of one of the leaves changing. I think Adam Hogue threw it out there, or Hoge, however you want to say it. So it looks like fall's coming, dude. It's about that. It's about that time, dude. Air's gonna get crisp. So, yeah, man, I'm just excited. Obviously, some shit's going on with the Bears. There's always shit going on with the Bears. This fan base, I don't know if it's all fan bases. I don't know if it's just the Twitter sphere now. But there's so much drama that happens every single day. You can share just a simple observation and just get attacked from all which ways, which you probably saw us on your timelines if you follow us, kind of going back and forth about some things with Ryan Poles. But yeah, otherwise great, man. I'm ready to get into the show.
Yeah, no, essentially, really with any of that stuff, I'm just going to chalk it up as we killed the aura, because I feel and it's every year. It doesn't matter if we're going into the last year, Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. There's always going to be this aura among the Bears fan base that, if this goes right and this goes right and this goes right, this team can really be something, you know what I mean? Because we saw it last year when me and you kind of had the understanding that this is going to probably fall off the rails insanely quick, because Matt Nagy probably shouldn't have been brought back. There's an argument Ryan Pace shouldn't have been brought back. But we're not here to just completely burst everyone's bubble. We're just trying to make observations. Me and Lucas have been covering this team for a very fucking long time. And this team has just been destroying our mentals. Dude, after a Bears game that we lose, I'm having a hard time for next day or two, honestly, because that's how much this team emotionally affects me. So I'm just going to give it how it is. Lucas, you're the exact same way. That's why we vibe so well on this podcast. And that's how we're going to keep it on this podcast. But anyway, moving forward, just past all that bullshit, because it doesn't deserve any more time. Lucas, me and you made it down to training camp. First time, both of us being at Hallis Hall. It was actually my first training camp ever. So it was nice, that we touched tips a little bit. We had a moment. It was a really great situation. I will always be able to say that Lucas was my first guest at
I popped your TC cherry. I mean, honestly, at first, I was really not happy with the situation because I tried to go up there on Thursday, the day before we went, and parking was a bitch. At least it seemed that way because of the way I was coming. But
you also, and don't do this if you're going to training camp, do not drive directly to Hallis Hall.
There wasn't. Yeah, I did. I fucked up. I woke up late too, so I was freaking out. But there's not a lot of signage there. Unless you're by that Casey's, for anyone that's going to be going in the future, there's a Casey's gas station on the corner. That's where the first signage appears. So this mall, and then there's a Hawthorne Mall that you're parking at, Hawthorne Square across the street. There's all this shit. So I'm already running late. I turned in the first entrance to Hawthorne Mall. I see school buses parked there, and I don't even know what the school buses were for. I pulled up. I'm like, there's no school in session. This has to be the shuttle, right? But no signage at all. I asked the bus driver. She was for some other trip. So I'm like, what's going on? By the time I pulled up, they stopped shuttles at 10:30. So I couldn't make it in there. And I literally pulled in at 9:45 or so. So I was definitely late. I'm not going to say I wasn't a shitbag. I'm not going to say I wasn't up all night doing stupid things, but either way, I was really happy with Hallis Hall. It's a beautiful facility. I will say it felt like they positioned some of the 7-on-7 and team drills so you could not see everything fully. For position drills and stuff like that, they had people right all along the sidelines because they have it set up with the bleachers. There's one bleacher in the back, there's one in the corner, and then there's one on the side. So it just who would say rare W? I don't know who unknown X Pro is, but I got mad W's fucking flowing at all times. It's got to be Dylan or someone. It has to be. He's the only one that's desperate enough to change his name just to make fun of me. If it's someone random, then let's debate this W topic. No, but it did feel like they were trying to kind of hide the crowd from some of the things and being able to see. Yeah, of course it's Dylan. And yeah, but overall, like, really nice setup. It was actually super efficient the way they did the shuttles. We weren't sitting there waiting all day to like get everyone to load on. So overall, I think it was a good experience. We met Zach Miller, which was dope. I don't even want to sound weird, but he smelled good. He looked as good as he smelled. Tell me he didn't smell good. Like, tell me when you took that picture with him, you were like, damn, this motherfucker smells good.
No, straight up. Honestly, like, that was probably the coolest moment for me, was just getting a chance to take a picture with Zach Miller. Like, just because, I've always been such a big fan of him, because like, how couldn't you be a fan of Zach Miller when him and Cuddy were actually tearing it up pretty good? Also a notoriously huge Mitch guy, and he's pretty big on Justin Fields as well. But so Spag, I've never been to Bourbonnais. Obviously, like I was saying, it was the first time I had been to training camp. But like, it just seemed like the Bears really did a good job kind of really being able to funnel traffic, being able to put on a pretty good show. Really, besides the bleachers that are kind of over by the defensive field, which would be the farther end, you get a pretty good view for the most part in any of those bleachers. Like, you gotta
the east end zone. There's nothing in the west end zone, and I felt like they were going from like the 20, so you were like 35, 40 yards away at some point. That's what I meant by like the vantage point.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, they were actually doing this thing, and I don't know if they've been doing it still at camp. Lucas, you're going to be down there tomorrow, aren't you?
I got work, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
So that's just one of those things, yeah.
I'm going to be down there on Friday, so I'll be able to get like a better tell of it. But what they were doing, and it seems strategic, because obviously they're going to want, they're kind of against the whole recording process, which that's an entirely different conversation for another day. But it seems like team individual drills and stuff like that, they were really switching around the fields to kind of make sure that people were kind of still moving around. Perhaps that's an idea to maybe give everyone a little bit better view. So like, maybe some of like the more like the disabled people, like there was an entire section like dedicated to that. Like, and as having a father who has a piece of his leg missing, like that's pretty cool in my opinion. So they could be doing stuff to kind of put on a better show. But regardless, like, it was just it was a great time. Me and Lucas
I'll say, because I do have the comparison. The thing that I really liked about Bourbonnais was, first of all, you got off the highway, there were signs taking you all the way to Olivet Nazarene. Second of all, you were able to just roll up, park, and walk in. Like, that's like,
Lucas is a big sign guy. He needs signs to figure out where he's
going. Dude, it shouldn't have been that hard to find it. Like, I'm sorry. You drive past, there's 17 entries to that fucking mall. Like, and only one had any sort of signage. And it wasn't like a big sign that was put onto something in the air. It was like a little fucking Jimmy John sign that they put in front of the Jimmy Johns to say, like, fresh subs are here. And it said Bears fucking shuttle. So don't give me that bullshit, okay? We got enough Bears fans that want to talk about how it is getting in and out of fucking Soldier Field and Lakeshore Drive. These people care about the logistics of what's going on here.
No, dude, come on. Logistics are always great, but like, I'm done caring.
Well. Yeah, they had beers and stuff too. They never had that in Olivet Nazarene.
Yeah, dude. I made a tweet about that. Their beers are cheaper there than you'll get at Soldier Field, a Sox game, really any other Chicago venue. So I mean, that was actually kind of a cool, nice little gesture. I mean, obviously you can afford for it to be a little bit cheaper because you've got people coming in for free anyway. I mean, so it's just all kind of profit at that point. But it was still pretty cool. I personally didn't want to drink, and probably wouldn't want to, just because training camp, when I'm going there, I really want to be able to focus on like all the little details I can. But I guess yeah, we will answer that question a little bit later. But let me kind of
yeah. Did you read that question too?
No, I didn't.
Elaborate a little bit more and we'll answer it for you pretty quick here. I'm just not fully understanding the question. The chop block Lucas responded to on Twitter. I responded to it.
Yeah, we'll find it. But anyway, the biggest thing that me and Lucas kind of started out with was we kind of just walked by everybody. Though it was kind of as players were getting on the field and stuff like that. So we kind of got to get a really close look. That's how we saw Robert Quinn come out in pads and a helmet for the first time all camp. That was a really, really good sign. Obviously he's practicing in full at this point. And then honestly, I was taken away by how good a shape a guy in Kairos Tonga is, where the interior of the defensive line is kind of in an influx, man. There's a lot of open positions to be there. That is very much camp battle. I haven't seen anybody slated in there as like the for sure starter compared to say like a Travis Gibson and a Robert Quinn on the outside. So like Kairos Tonga being in great shape, him always being an athletic type of guy in the first place for his size, like it bodes insanely well. Like he can shoot gaps, he can eat gaps, like he'll be able to eat the run, he'll be able to get an interior pass rush like he did in college. Like his pressures in college were actually very impressive. So I think him and Angelo Blackson both looked like they were in pretty good shape. So I very
especially in comparison to last year, dude. Tonga looked like he definitely trimmed out a ton. Yeah, initial reaction too for me. I know Braxton Jones. A lot of people are tweeting good things about him today, which awesome. Like I hope so. He looks the part. Like he's enormous, bro. He looks like your prototypical, like the wall you want at left tackle. He's a big motherfucker with really long arms, long limbs in general. So you'd think he'd be able to, you'd think he'd be able to get that separation and kind of recover pretty quickly with bigger steps because he's like 6'6" or something like that. I know, or maybe 6'5". I'm not sure, 6'7". He's around that range, but he looks the part. And then there was a couple guys like, bro, the second round DBs look the part. Kyler Gordon literally floats. I don't know how else to describe it. Like he's a different kind of athlete. Jaquan Brisker's a good athlete. He made some pretty good plays on the ball and stuff like that. And he's got a pretty decent vertical. But when you look at Kyler Gordon, I don't even know if his vertical is that good, but he just reminds me of like, honestly, when Derrick Rose would float above the rim. That's how he seems to me. He's just like, I don't know how to say it, man. And I don't want it to sound like disrespectful, but he's graceful in the way he moves like a ballerina or a gymnast. You know what I mean? Like he's a different kind of athlete.
Well, dude, and that's not even disrespectful because there's a lot of football players who in the off season will mess around with things like yoga for flexibility and ballet.
Lynch used to do ballet for balance.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of things that go with that, and kind of to really encapsulate what it is with Kyler Gordon, at least in my opinion, is I think he is just a great center of gravity. Like he's very good at keeping his body controlled and having his body do what it wants to do. The number one thing I noticed in interception drills, and this is probably the play that is kind of jumping in your head, Lucas, of that incredible interception right on the first one from Kyler Gordon.
Yes.
And it was a play where like he had to move for it because the throw was a little off because obviously you want these guys to kind of work for the ball in interception drill. But like it looked like he was about to go sideways and his body was nearly sideways. It looked like he was about to fall onto the grass. He put his arm down, didn't even touch the ground, was probably like this far off the ground from even touching it, and he fucking balanced back up on both of his feet. Like it was immaculate center of balance, and that takes a lot of core strength, that takes a lot of footwork, that takes a lot of just knowing your body. You know what I mean? Knowing how much weight you can put towards your right leg and still find a way to get on your left. Like it was really impressive. Him as an athlete, like outside of what he does, being a ball hawk and working in coverage, him as an athlete alone was insanely impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have enough good things to say about Kyler Gordon. He was one of the people that stood out the most for me. Another guy, dude, Tristan Ebner. Like, he's different. He's different in terms of a receiving back. Even we've argued back and forth, okay, Monty's definitely a better route runner than Herbert, and Herbert might be a better fit for outside zone. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, Ebner is already the best route running running back that the Chicago Bears have. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to mess with him a little bit in the slot because of how decisive he is. Like, he had people in blenders. He was making some of our even better linebackers look like they would not be able to have a chance to cover him in one-on-one. Just a different level of separation when it came to Tristan Ebner, and he's extremely fast, like gets up to top speed very quickly. So I think that's a gem right there, and I think he's going to make the team for sure. I guess speaking of linebackers too, Roquan Smith was completely engaged. Like, we're not going to talk about the holdout or the deal or any of the stuff. We've covered this kind of extensively in our last episode, but Roquan Smith does not seem like the guy that doesn't want to be out there. That's just to put it that way. He's involved heavily in every single drill. He's standing next to the guys, coaching them up. Like you could tell he's itching to fucking get out there and get this contract settled.
Well, what really stuck out to me, especially when it came to the drills, was like, if you've ever played football, there's a line where you stand in before you go do a drill, and then there's this distance between the coach and the actual drill. Roquan was like at least like 6 to 10 feet in front of everybody else, like staring, engaged in the drill, coaching up linebackers the second the drill was over. Like he was very much in. I know we've kind of talked about on the last episode where like he is the most like non-holdout player ever, just with how well he's still being a teammate and being a leader. And like it irradiated. Like he was out there, he was all smiles. Like he was interacting with the fans. He was constantly talking with coaches, constantly talking with his teammates. I know he was giving points to Nicholas Morrow and Jack Sanborn quite a bit. It seems like those are two guys that he's already getting pretty comfortable with. He just looks like a guy that you want on your team. He looks like the guy you want running your defense. And I know that even with him not being in pads, that has to have an enormous effect on both the defensive coordinator and the head coach, who are obviously, big defensive guys. So I'm really impressed with what I saw from Roquan Smith. And even while we got this point here, Tristan Ebner, I thought also had a really good day of practice. I know Eddie Jackson made a comment earlier in the week about how high the ceiling is for a guy like Jaquan Brisker, like how highly he feels about him and how great of a player he thinks he can be. Those two during individual drills and group drills were attached at the hip. Eddie Jackson and Jaquan Brisker were next to each other at all times during this practice. And, maybe that's just getting comfortable, being around each other. Obviously they're going to be paired together in the back end of the secondary, but like, if anybody was expecting Eddie Jackson to come into camp with like this sort of bad attitude or like not willing to embrace the culture or what's going on here, I think you look at what he's doing with Jaquan Brisker right now and take him under his wing, and that alone speaks volumes to how Eddie Jackson feels about this new coaching staff.
Here's another thing too, dude, man. I think Eddie Jackson was humbled a lot in the last couple of years and realizes how valuable Jaquan Brisker can be for his comeback, knowing that he's not going to have those responsibilities that aren't in his best interest for his stats and shit like that. You know what I mean? What really got him paid being that ball hawk. So I think he's understanding that and trying to get this kid up to speed as quickly as possible, because you got to think, man, he hears that stuff. Everyone, that's the thing. Like, we've heard about the turning the TVs off at Hallis Hall, and Justin Fields doesn't care about the outside noise. You hear all that shit all the time, but like, they see it. Bojack was literally running this city for 2-3 years, and everyone turned on him. And that's just kind of hey, I had a tweet actually kind of go viral. Not viral in the sense of like viral, but like in terms of myself viral. Just got a lot of responses and stuff like that, because I said, hype the players up to no oblivion. Team doesn't want him or they ship him, and then trash that player, right? Rinse and repeat, because that is Bears Twitter. Like, it's just something. And that's why I feel like some of this shit on Twitter gets me so annoyed, because if you just call it like you see it and you're not willing to undoubtedly hype up the franchise that has forever done nothing correctly in my lifetime, that George McCaskey and Ted Phillips have hired all of these head coaches and GMs, like, if you're not going to just throw yourself into the fire for them, then for some reason people come out of the woodwork and attack you. And those are the same people deleting tweets. And, because it's like, if you hype up everybody and delete all your bad tweets, then it'll just make it look like you hit about guys like Darnell Mooney, who a lot of people weren't talking about at first, right? Like, it's just one of those fucking things. So it's like, I don't know. At the end of the day, I think people are starting to catch on a little bit with some of these bigger Twitter personalities that do it. But it's just bullshit.
Well, I mean, just kind of picking up on that, because like, to the Eddie Jackson point, like, because there's a flip side to this optimism, and it's usually when we hit about midway through the year. Once the fan base decides they hate somebody, if you also don't hate that guy and trash him, you will be in the exact same situation. Like, people will go at you. I had to deal with this with Eddie Jackson last year. I had to deal with it with Cole Kmet the past few years. Like,
that's a big one.
It is. Like, a lot of people get really worked up about that type of thing. And like, I love seeing, say, the Cole Kmet guys, kind of coming out of the woodwork now to a point, just because Cole Kmet deserves that type of recognition, because I truly think he is going to take that type of next step, which, by the way, he looked incredible at camp as well. And he's just continued to look great. Perfect safety valve for a young quarterback. But it's still annoying because everyone was on his ass before. And like, I took a beating, man, and I'm fine with taking a beating online. Like that stuff really doesn't bother me all that much. You know what I mean? Because I'd rather be unpopular, hated, but not be wrong. You know what I mean? Like that's I've always kind of had that attitude. I have it when I'm talking about the White Sox. I have it when I'm talking about the Blackhawks, Bulls. It doesn't matter. And like, that's why I'll always go to bat for some of these guys. And that's why I like to just be honest, man. I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to sit on Twitter and be like, hey, or on Facebook, anywhere. Cause dude, honestly, Facebook, you got plenty of terrible fans over there too. You have a lot of great fans everywhere though. I want to elaborate on that. We still do have a great fan base compared to a lot of other teams, but it just, you gotta be able to have nuance, man. You gotta be able to just accept that not all your takes are fucking golden, and that every group idea that you have in a group chat isn't always the fucking law. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah, but let's move on from Twitter. I'm sorry, we have to rant sometimes. We both were taking shots the last couple days. But Bubba we are coming back. So I think he just wants a general feel on Velus Jones because he saw me reply to Clay Harbor's tweet. I actually replied, "Read my bio." To someone that said like something about how I guess it's not bad for that old man because everyone's messing around. I'm a big Velus Jones guy, or Velus Jones guy. I'm going to say that from the start. Didn't really know much about him, but because he received so much hate from the second he was drafted for no fucking apparent reason, I was all on board with him. And the more I found out about him, the more I liked about him when it comes to tape and all that stuff. What I will say, it wasn't a huge day for Velus when we were in training camp. I wouldn't say he was someone that stood out of the ordinary, but he does look the part. Like, he's a big motherfucker that's moving at 4.31 or whatever he ran, 4.33. And you notice the speed right away. Like, he's there. I'm sure he needs to be refined a bit more, but that's why, like, it was a tweet that I was responding to about how he cracked back on Elijah Hicks, who we're actually a big fan of as well on this podcast. And he had that crackback block, and it led, I think, Tristan Ebner to a touchdown, or maybe Khalil Herbert, maybe David Montgomery. Either way, you can tell that he's going to be that type of dude. And I didn't see him running with the ones at all, to be honest. Who did we see? ESB, who actually, fuck, man, he was pretty impressive. That was one of the guys that stood out for me. Equinemius St. Brown, Darnell Mooney, and Byron Pringle. Those were the main guys running. And don't forget, the two of the guys that the Chicago Bears signed they signed Byron Pringle and they traded for N'Keal Harry. Both of those guys were ranked at the top of the league in run blocking. So I could see Velus Jones being one of those guys that's a threat as a screen pass, but then actually goes out and cracks some skulls on a lead blocking type situation. So I like the idea of having N'Keal Harry, Byron Pringle, and Velus Jones on the edge there, and running some screen passes out of that, because you got three guys that can block downfield. And it's really mismatches when you have guys that are that big. I mean, Byron Pringle is also over 200 pounds. So N'Keal Harry's like 230. Velus Jones is 225. Or I'm sorry, not 225, 205. So, I mean, we're talking about three guys that are going to have size on DBs, and they're going to be able to win at the point of attack. We also saw Cole Kmet split out a lot for a guy who's supposed to be an inline blocking tight end only. I feel like O'Shaughnessy was that guy when they ran two tight end sets, and he would be in closer, and Cole Kmet would split out. So I'll tell you right now, dude, in terms of Cole Kmet, because we got a few Kmet comments in the comment board here, he's not coming off the field. Like, we saw Montgomery, the DBs, the starting wide receivers. We even saw some rotations on the O-line. I didn't see him come out for any of goal line work while we were there. So he's going to be a heavy fucking influence. He's going to be one of those. I'm telling you, dude, it's going to be such an indictment on Matt Nagy when he has 8 touchdowns this year. I'm not saying he's going to go insane, but he's going to have 8 touchdowns this year, and it's going to quadruple his first 2 years with the Chicago Bears under Matt Nagy.
Yeah, no, and there's a lot I want to touch on with this topic. Cole Kmet, honestly, I'll start with because that's a great point, and it kind of plays into the point I'm trying to make here. So one thing we've seen really through the last few years, especially through the Matt Nagy system, is kind of tagging certain players as a certain one set position. You have, like XYZ. Those that's like the three letters that I've heard way too freaking much of last 5 years. That's kind of where people really start getting into terminology that they think they're smarter. They think they sound smarter because they use it. One thing I really noticed with the way the offense is being run right now is you will see nearly any wide receiver in the slot. You will see nearly any wide receiver outside. You will see Cole Kmet lined up outside. You will see Cole Kmet lined up inside. Regardless, as Lucas said, you will see Cole Kmet on the field. So it doesn't seem like we're going to have this stagnant type of we are only going to have this player in to play this set position. You know what I mean? Like there is going to be, it seems like they're preparing these guys to have to play any position at any given moment, which is honestly something that should be done across the league with any team. You know what I mean? Like if you have a good receiver, you find a way to get him on the field. You want to get your best three wide receivers on the field, regardless of what type of wide receiver they are or where they play. Obviously you're going to want one of your better route runners in the slot, to be able to take plays over the middle and catch passes over the middle as well. You're also going to want a guy who can take the ball over the top, and Avalis Jones, honestly, a guy that we slotted as a slot guy throughout most of the pre-draft process or through most of the draft process. He was working outside quite a bit. I don't know if that's changed since we've been there at camp. I've seen some updates, but I haven't seen really any touch on that. But it seems like it's going to be a lot more fluid of a system. It's not going to be this guy has to play here, otherwise he's not going to be on the field. It's we're going to have our best four guys on the field at all times in the receiver core, and that's going to be the same deal with the tight end position, because Cole Kmet can go through the seam, he can go to the corner of the end zone, he can battle in the middle of the field. I think the biggest point is the 80 yards between, or the 60 yards between both end zones. You know what I mean? The 60 yards midfield. That's where Cole Kmet made his money last year. And that can extend to the entire 100 yards. You know what I mean? And he's more than proven that, dude. He has the size, he has the athleticism. Eknemary St. Brown honestly looks like he's going to be an incredible red zone threat, and he also has enough speed to be able to take one over the top and make a play down the field as well. Byron Pringle, he has enough speed and enough route running to be able to work the middle of the field as well. Darnell Mooney, I'm convinced, can play any three of these wide receiver positions effectively, and that's just because he's genuinely the most talented wide receiver on the roster. So this idea that, and it's quieted down a lot, Lucas. Have you seen an X, Y, or Z receiver fucking tweet in a while? It's because we're just straight up having the best players on the field at all times. It seems like Getsy's already kind of has a couple guys. He's been using Eknemary St. Brown quite a bit. That's obviously the Packers connection. And I like it. I really do. And I also like how they're utilizing tight end and heavy sets in shotgun, because this is something Luke Getsy did, or the Packers offense really has done over the past few years, especially with a guy like Devontae Adams, is getting that guy in space, even in Allen Lazard, getting that guy in space where you force the safeties to move in and pay attention to the tight ends, because your tight ends are always a receiving threat in shotgun, and being able to get more one-on-one matchups on the outside. So I really think, it's going to take a little bit. It's not going to happen overnight. This offense isn't going to be clicking week one, but there's potential to really get a good scheme built into this where defenses legitimately will not know what's coming on any given play.
Yeah, honestly, man, dude, I thought St. Brown was going to be a cut candidate. And the one thing I know, I've kind of harped on this earlier, but the one thing I noticed about the type of receivers brought in is that it's size and speed combined, right? You don't have that 5'11", 5'10" guy that runs a 4.3 run that's 175. ESB's at least 6'3". N'Keal Harry's the only guy that's not a burner. All the other guys that have some speed, Mooney's a pace guy, but he's bona fide on this offense at least. He's definitely solidified as a starter here. But I just like the sizes that you're seeing in the mix. Before, it seemed like we had a lot of the same type of receiver. Now it seems like we kind of, as my boys Bucky Brooks and DJ like to say, you're building it like a basketball team. You have your power forward. You have your shoot. You know what I mean? You have different guys that can do different things in different situations, and I like that a lot. And we're going to be able to go real big on the goal line in terms of wide receivers and tight ends. So I really like that a lot in terms of matchups. Now, overall talent, I don't know, right? I can tell you that when I went to training camp the first year, the Bears got Cordell Patterson. I was like, holy shit, he could play defensive end. I got that same vibe from N'Keal Harry. Like, he is as big as some of the defensive ends on that team. Now, in terms of speed, he's not Cordero Patterson at all. They're not going to play even close to similar roles, but you get what I'm saying? Like, there's a nice blend of size and speed with everybody. Either you're going to be one of the biggest guys on the field, or you're going to be fast and strong, or you're going to be fast and tall. Like, there's not those guys that are 170 pounds soaking wet. And that's, I like thick boys playing wide receiver.
Yeah, and I mean, there's always something to be said about having like that vet wide receiver who can, catch everything, who's maybe not going to be a very high upside candidate for you on offense. And I think there's still potential that the Bears could possibly make a move for something like that, whether it's free agency or potentially a trade. But if you are kind of starting from scratch with a wide receiver core, kind of the number one thing you want to do is get young, high upside guys in the building. And I have to say, from everything that I've seen, all these guys being built on having incredible athleticism, they're footing the bill right now for sure. Like, they definitely have that athleticism. Like, it's kind of staggering to see a couple of them in person. N'Keal Harry looks like a legit number one receiver. Just looking at him, without him running a route, without him being thrown a football, him just standing there in pads, he looks like a guy that you're like, I'm gonna feed him all day. But he's got to bring that all together, and that's going to be kind of a test for Luke Getsy. Is Luke Getsy going to be able to get the most out of a guy like this, where it's obvious he's raw, it's obvious he didn't get the attention he needed in New England, and he's going to need an offense to really fit him in. I know we were just talking about not kind of having more fluidity on offense, not necessarily being like set roles, but like, I'm interested to see when N'Keal Harry will hit the field if he does make the 53-man roster, like what situations he will be on the field. Like, is he going to be used more as a red zone guy? Is he going to be used near the middle of the field, maybe to take a shot for a jump ball or something like that? There's a lot of interesting concepts there. And I think Luke Getsy is a guy that, you can say whatever you want about Aaron Rodgers. Like, that's fine. One of the best quarterbacks in football. It's impossible to deny that. But like, you have to admit, the wide receiver room has to be doing something right, because they are just tossing anybody out there and still finding ways to make that work. You know what I mean? Like, quarterback can only do so much.
Yeah, no, but Aaron Rodgers is not the Aaron Rodgers of old. You look into the stats, he's had like 35 fucking touchdowns to Devontae Adams from the 1 yard line in the last 2 years. He's not that guy that's just been lacing deep balls every single day. Yeah, he's definitely N'Keal Harry's not just a straight line guy, similar to Christian Watson. But no, I'm actually going to put you on the spot and myself. Let's come up with, if the Bears were going to put 5 guys on their 53-man roster, who would it be? I've already slotted in Mooney and Pringle, but what are you thinking for the last 3? Like, I'm thinking Bayless makes it strictly for special teams alone.
Well, Bayless is 100% going to make it. I don't have any doubt.
2, right? Yeah, but I don't know, man. I think it could be Harry and ESB. Like, I did not, dude, when I tell you, I thought ESB was just a camp body, I thought he was. Like, I did not think he was going to get nearly as much of a role. He caught like 3 touchdowns in that red zone drill that we were watching, and we actually had a great vantage point for that.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think if there's anybody who can kind of maybe make a push at that, and he's already having a pretty good camp, it would be David Moore, I believe that's his name.
Moore, yeah. I did like him when they picked him up too.
He's been having a pretty good camp from everything I've seen. We didn't see a ton of him when me and Lucas went, but from everything I've seen on Twitter, any of the videos that I've seen, it's looked like he's looked pretty good. He's going to definitely be somebody on my list on Friday that I'm going to be paying a very close attention to.
He's another one of those guys. He's like 6'1", 205, like just all that type of like run after catch receiver, right? Like that guy that's going to go out there and block for you. He's going to be able to crack back on linebackers on outside zone, like everyone that they got. So they have a type, clearly.
Yeah, no, and it's going to be a lot of guys who are going to be doing something on the field no matter where they're playing or what the play call is. You know what I mean? Like, whether it's a run play, like we have some of the best run blocking wide receivers in the NFL on our roster now. Like, I know that doesn't pop off the board to anybody. You know, it's not a very sexy fucking statistic to have, especially when those guys are N'Keal Harry and ESB, but like, that is still something, you know, especially when you have Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery in the backfield. And, you know, I feel like we're going to sit with a lot of beef on the field, man. I feel like we're going to have a legit swing tackle we're going to use consistently. Kmet's going to be used quite a bit in the blocking game while still being a receiving tight end. Like, I really hope Cole Kmet's cardio is just through the roof right now, because like, he's going to be hard to keep off the field.
That's
because he adds so much to this offense.
Yeah, that's another thing I noticed. That you brought up something about swing tackle, so we should probably get to the Teven Jenkins thing. But just before we do that, no one was huffing and puffing during training camp. Like if Luce's message was you got to be in shape, like I didn't see anybody that was out of shape in any way, shape, or form. Everyone like Tonga looked good. Fucking Robert Quinn even looked good. Everyone came in shape. So I
And
will give
it
them
was
that.
balls to the wall through drills, everything. No, there was not a lot of standing around once practice started.
Why they got that one mini camp taken away or whatever because guys were hitting the ground like they were going full out. I mean, you got a lot of guys that are looking for a spot and a lot of spots open. So you're gonna have that when you have that much competition.
Speaking of which, if it's the last guy I can talk about, you already know where I'm going to go with this, Lucas. But we will get into Teven Jenkins. I will say I know I'm a Wisconsin guy. It just happened to be Jack Sanborn's birthday when we did go, which is just, that was total coincidence. Definitely didn't plan that out months ahead or anything like that. I'm not obsessed with Jack Sanborn, I promise. But but in all honesty, Jack started the day off a little rough. He looked a bit iffy in coverage drills, but at the same time, that's not his bread and butter. That's not why he's going to be on the field. He was like always to the ball. Like that's number one with Jack Sanborn. He's always going to be to the ball. He was used quite a bit. Like for an undrafted free agent, he's been getting a heavy dose in team drills. Like he is one of the main guys being used out there quite a bit. I would say he's getting almost a 60-40 snap share with whoever would be behind him, which would be like a shit.
Well, Adams,
Adams, yeah,
I will
that's
say, I think his name's Matt Adams. I will say I was more impressed with Adams. Like you are looking at Sanborn with a little bit more rose-colored glasses. I honestly don't know. I mean, we got to see, right? Because they're gonna have three. It's a three linebacker, three inside linebackers, or however you
well,
want to call it, right?
it
You
seemed
don't
like
need your linebackers to be edge rushers, so they might keep extra linebackers, guys that can both play. Sam, Will, and Mike. But I think his coverage, like if you need someone to come in and slot in for pass coverage and play the Mike or something during an injury, like Sanborn can't be a liability. So I think it's going to come down to special teams really for him, and if he's going to be a contributor. But I don't know, Duke. I hate to disagree with you. I know he's your boy, but I wasn't as in love with him as you were.
well, that's fine. It's just it seems like Matt Eberflus is because he was being used pretty consistently with Nicholas Morrow, who is voting to slot in next to Roquan. So it seems like he's already getting heavy usage. It seems like Matt Eberflus is already kind of on board with what he's seeing from him. Is he just testing him out and as seeing him as a guy that he wants to keep on the roster, but maybe necessarily not being used on defense? Is he going to be a special teams guy? Sure, but I think that's another guy I'm going to be looking at, obviously, on Friday, and I want to see what he looks like in pads because he was finishing plays. Like, he was finishing to the ball. He was running to the ball every single play. He looked like a guy who, I mean, he got in a couple collisions even, and, that's a little worrisome when you don't have pads on, but he's a guy who looks hungry. He looks like a guy who, once pads are on and he can actually, put his shoulder pads on somebody, I think he's going to look a lot different. Because, genuinely, man, you don't need someone huge in coverage next to Roquan. And honestly, if Roquan, God forbid, were to go down during the game, you'd probably end up subbing out a guy like Sanborn anyway, because you want to focus more on coverage at that point and potentially get a little bit more heavy up front. But I think it's going to be a camp battle for sure. That there is linebacker spots that are completely wide open. Roquan and Morrow look like some heavy favorites. Matt Adams, Joe Thomas looked pretty good on that Friday as well. I know that's our boy Joey Hurf's boy. So it's going to be interesting to watch. I will agree to disagree with you, Lucas, because I try not to hold it too much with rose-colored glasses. I know I can rave about Jack Sanborn sometimes, but like I wouldn't want a liability on the Chicago Bears defense as much as I loved him in college.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, I get it. I'm sure we can go into Jack Sanborn for a long time, but let's get into the Teven Jenkins thing because that's clearly something that's on everyone's radar. And at this point, I'm just fucking confused, right? Like they weren't releasing any information at all about an injury designation. Now Flus is saying he's day to day. You have Cap coming out saying that like position coaches made him cry in college, and the challenge that the Bears are giving him, he's not responding to. So now he's on the trade block. Then you have some other reporter that I've never heard of saying that she verified with NFL sources that they are pushing to trade Teven Jenkins. It's just a muddy situation, and I'm not really sure what's going on at this point.
Yeah, It's kind of hard to say, honestly. You know, I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm more confused than anything. It seems like something that is coming to a head right now. So it seems like it could be more Teven Jenkins than, say, Matt Eberflus or Ryan Poles. We're going to learn more as it plays out. It's obviously concerning because he does have an injury history. So that could still be a possibility. And we could really be selling this up a lot more than what it actually is. You know, kind of similar with like everybody saying that Robert Quinn was going to completely hold out of camp. And then, you know, he's already in pads. You know what I mean? So like, there's a lot of things that have to play out behind the scenes, but it's hard to really tell from the outside looking in exactly what's happened with Teven Jenkins. Obviously, you know, Teven not having an impressive rookie year, being injured for the most part, he's not necessarily on the best, you know, the best side of things with a lot of the fan base and with a lot of the reporters who do follow this team, because obviously they want success for the Bears. You know, they're covering the team, and the better the Bears do, the better their coverage looks like. But it's hard to really tell. I will say, if Teven is being this way, like if this is a Teven Jenkins thing, like he is not responding to challenges and he's
Instantly.
not able to like mentally handle this, then yeah, move on from it. Like, and I'm a Teven Jenkins guy. I was really happy when we drafted him, and I had really high hopes going into this season. But like, if he is gonna be this distraction, this is something we do not need in year one of a new regiment in training camp. Like, it's as simple as that. And I don't want a guy like Braxton Jones to get that like the wrong message. You know, I don't want him to feel like, oh God, I'm taking the left tackle position from a guy who got drafted in the second round last year. Like, what's the locker room going to think of me, dude? Like, I want him to be able to fucking just look full straight ahead. Don't worry about any of that other shit, which Tevin's just not making that easy right now. You know what I
Well, I
mean?
mean, you got to think too, dude. This guy's fighting for his job. It's not like you're playing with your friends. You're. This is your job. So I'm sure he's happy to take anyone's fucking job.
Well, yeah, that's fine, but it's hard. It's always hard to gauge as a rookie, especially when you're a lower round pick. You know, it's not when you're competing against a higher round pick. You know, maybe that puts a chip on his shoulder. It obviously has, because Braxton Jones, by all accounts, for everybody, has looked, you know, great. But I don't know, man. I want to see this get. I want to see this get come to a resolution sooner rather than later, because I'm sick of speculation. I want to know what's going on. Like, is this Teven Jenkins being a cancer in the locker room? Is this Ryan Poles not really buying into Teven Jenkins from the start? You know, did he want to trade Teven Jenkins earlier in the offseason? Like, was this always a plan that he wanted to trade Teven Jenkins and he was waiting for a team to maybe get desperate for a tackle? Like, I want to know what the thought process behind all of this is. And with Ryan Poles not giving us anything, Matt Eberflus not giving us anything, and Teven Jenkins essentially being a mute besides one tweet on Twitter, it's hard to really speculate, because we just genuinely don't know. Like, I don't want to sit here and trash Teven Jenkins if his back injury is flaring up, and I don't want to sit here and trash Ryan Poles if this is something completely out of his control. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't. You know, we don't. I'm not saying trash anyone, or I mean, we see that. That's kind of come full circle to a couple of things we ranted about on Twitter, and just kind of, you know, how many people were hyped up for Teven Jenkins. There wasn't anyone that wasn't hyped up for Teven Jenkins. You know, he was supposed to be a first rounder, and then you start to like kind of unpack and, I don't know, connect the dots a little bit, and I feel like it's got to be more of a Teven Jenkins thing. If I had, you know, gun to my head and I had to pick, because you look, it's like last year Teven Jenkins was being mentioned with possibly being the second, third tackle off the board, and you had a ton of guys go before him. So what did people find out? Was it the back injury? Was it the fact that maybe they thought he wasn't going to be mentally tough enough because they heard some of these rumors about, you know, maybe him not responding well to criticism from coaching? But then you get into it and it's like, okay, well, training camp started. He's going to be not present for last training camp, and so far he hasn't been training for this training camp. Present for this training camp. So obviously it's like, all right, well, is it a back thing? And then you find out he get moved to the second team. You know what I mean? It's just like things kind of add up to make it not look like Teven, or make it look like it is Teven Jenkins, and something's going on with him. I don't know, man. It's just weird, because you'd think someone with that much potential, like anyone, but you'd think they try to work him in. You'd think they would try to make it work before just casting him off. Now, I don't know. Maybe something happened and he blew up and he's like, I'm not playing for this team, right? Like, I'm not playing swing tackle. I'm a starting tackle in this league. Like, trade me. I don't know. We don't know. Maybe they're keeping it all in house, but it's just so strange, dude. Just such a strange series of events, like him getting dropped down to the twos, then him working as that swing tackle, and then Flus kind of getting pissed off being asked about him. Not because you'd think if he just had tweaked his back or tweaked his ankle, he'd be like, yeah, he's just out for a few days. He's day to day. But he waited a week and a half to release that information that now he's day to day, right around the times that there's trade rumors. So, it could be the media connecting the dots the same way I just did, or it could be that there is some smoke to the fire.
Yeah, no, that's definitely all insanely possible. You know what I mean? And I think you make a great point. Like, at a certain point, like it all seems like these are things that are surrounded around things that Teven Jenkins could control, and he's not. You know what I mean? Like he could make that push to be on the first team. Like I do think it's wild. Because one of the theories is that he's not a Poles guy, but like, even with Poles drafting Braxton Jones, like look at how late he drafted him, and that's going to be your starting day one left tackle. You know what I mean? That I don't think that was necessarily ideal situation for Ryan Poles. You know what I mean? At least with how he drafted, he was pretty prominent about drafting starters early on, and he really went for depth later on in the draft. At least that's how I read it. So like it didn't seem like that was somebody that he wanted day one out there. But obviously if you show up to camp and you're ready to take a spot that's kind of just hovering out there, because like if there was anyone's spot that was just kind of a lot of uncertainty, like it was his job to lose and he wasn't necessarily keeping it, it was definitely Teven Jenkins. And again, I hate to say that because like
he had the most draft status coming into it. He had the most quote unquote talent in terms of draft evaluation. So
yeah, it's one of those it's one of those whole like hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. You know what I mean? And that's unfortunately what it seems like. And, if we end up trading Teven and he ends up going off somewhere, yeah, we'll be sick about it. But like, is this something where he's forcing it out and it's kind of out of Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus's hands? Then yeah, absolutely. I will say though, I feel like Matt Eberflus just gets annoyed with the media in general. Like I can tell that this is going to be
just all football.
This is going to be kind of entertaining to watch over the years because Matt Eberflus, if you're trying to get some bullshit out of him, he's just not going to have it. And that's not even just a Teven Jenkins thing. That's like if you press him a little bit too much after he makes a statement, bro, he's just not going to give you anything. I'm waiting for the Belichickian just shutdowns where he just stares at you stupid and waits for the next question.
We're on to Cincinnati.
Yeah, basically. Or like the famous Belichick, he like stares at somebody, maybe smirks or laughs a little bit, and then you're just kind of looking around waiting for the next one.
He laughs like my fucking great grandpa did. It just
yeah, because he knows. He's like, you think you know.
That's a stupid ass question. Yeah, he just pretty much called him a dumb fuck without calling him a dumb fuck. But yeah, I mean, it's just so strange, dude. And I think that's a big part of it, right? Like a lot of us would be sick knowing that we traded a former second round pick that the Bears traded up for the year before to have him get shipped and then maybe go have a Pro Bowl season somewhere else. Like that would make everybody sick.
It would be.
Like, and again, like we have Riley Reid. Well, yeah, it would be very Bears. But like we do have Riley Reid too. Like he was working as the second left tackle, so maybe he's just working himself back into shape because he got signed late, which is something that we have discussed pretty ad nauseum. But yeah, like I just don't. It's just such a weird fucking situation to have like such a clash of information coming out.
Yeah, I will say, and that's the biggest thing with new regimens. We used to always talk about how like Brad Biggs fell out of favor with like Ryan Pace. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, because he used to be an Angelo guy.
Yeah, and like we're gonna see a shift with that because it seemed like Hodge and Johns, like they were kind of more the Pace guys
for sure. Yeah,
and like we don't know if that's necessarily going to be the same thing carrying over. Like we don't know who Ryan Poles, once he finally hits a boiling point, who he's going to confide in or give like little bits of info to. So that's going to be something to kind of pay attention to moving forward too. It could be a more established guy. It could be a newer person. You know what I mean? So that's going to be that's going to be interesting to kind of see. So that's probably why it's such a whirlwind right now, because we don't know that go-to. You know what I mean? Before, in the Angelo era, it was Biggs. In the Pace era, it was Hodge and Johns. right now everyone's trying to be that person, and we just don't know who it is.
Rappaport and Schefter tweet that they were looking to trade him too, though. Like that's
Yeah,
usually
no,
pretty fucking
100%. Like
official.
if
So
Rappaport tweets it, there's fucking smoke.
yeah,
100%.
yeah, that's why it's just like I think he is on the block. I don't think he'll be playing for the Chicago Bears this year, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't at this point I don't think so either. But I'm just talking in general. Like if we get bits of
Yeah.
information about anyone on the roster, I think they're still kind of easing into who's going to be that person that they trust to not leak too much. But yeah, no, I mean, in all honesty, it seems like, and this is kind of why Braxton Jones is getting hyped up so much, is he was actually paired with Riley Reif, and Riley Reif was playing right tackle today. So,
oh, okay, I didn't see that.
and Kramer's been doing a pretty like a 50-50 rotation with Mustafa right now as well. So he hasn't been getting talked about either, but from all accounts, it seems like if he's getting 50-50 splits, he's definitely doing something right. And when you have a guy like Michael Schofield who can play right tackle and has played a good amount of right tackle in his career, if they felt like they needed someone at right tackle more than they needed somebody at left tackle, it feels like they would put Schofield at right, Reef at left, and then, kind of fill in the blank at right guard. And they haven't done that. So it seems like they really like what Braxton Jones is doing at left tackle. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of eyes on him this weekend because I know a lot of people work during the week, so it's not necessarily easy to get down to camp during the week. But I have to assume on Friday, on any other days of camp there are this weekend, that a lot of the discussion, but like in the fan base, is going to be around Braxton Jones.
Said he looks the fucking part. Like we were there with no pads, so we can't really see what's happening, right? There was no like true one-on-one drills. But man, I'm telling you, in terms of draft status and size and like prominence at that left tackle position, he's giving me Teron Armstead vibes. And I'm not saying he's going to be that player, but just like how it's just like, yeah, came out of kind of nowhere as a late round pick, and you're just like, yeah, this looks like a prototypical left tackle. Like he looks like everything you'd want him to be. So hopefully he turns out to be that guy. I'm totally okay with it. I'm totally okay with being wrong about me not being comfortable with the offensive line situation and them actually uncovering 3 gems in this draft in the 5th round. Like I'm fine with that. Well, wait, where was Borum playing then? If right tackle was taken by Reed.
Borum was second team right tackle.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, but that's another guy. Everyone got really high on him last year before he played a snap, and then you get to training camp. He doesn't get a spot on the starting roster. Obviously, we went and signed Jason Peters as kind of an emergency signing. And then this year, you feel like the stars kind of align for a guy like Larry Borum, and they bring in 2 guys that can play his position as well as, draft multiple left tackle or multiple tackles. So it seems like it was a completely open competition. And these are the 5 guys. Well, I guess at least the couple guys that are young on the offensive line that have kind of stepped up to it because, you don't sign
Green's going to rise to the top now with the pads being on. It's going to make a huge difference. You're going to know within the next week now, kind of generally who's going to be your starter, who's going to be your swing tackle. I could see Borum taking that role.
I think preseason games and kind of testing it against a live defense that doesn't quite know what you're going to throw at him is going to be a big plus. It's going to really be able to tell. And I'm really interested to see what Riley Reif's like edge looks like. You know what I mean? Like, what does his edge at this age look like? And by edge, I mean like, how does he shuffle out? Like, can he still get to a speed rusher? Can he still, set his feet against a power rusher? Because that's kind of it's like one of the first things you lose as you get older is your footwork, or necessarily your speed footwork to the outside. So that's going to be interesting to see.
But your speed goes.
Yeah, and that's going to be obviously, Braxton Jones. That's going to be the number one thing. Like, can he set an edge? Like, can he hit pass pro? Can he get into somebody's, chest plate without completely, overextending himself? I'm really interested to see what the offensive line looks against live practice, and I can't wait to go on Friday because I want to see what everyone's raving about the job he did on Robert Quinn today, and I want to see that. I want to see that live in person because Robert Quinn kind of just broke the sack record last year, so that would actually be pretty impressive if he was keeping him in check. I also want to see Robert Quinn. I love you to death, but is Robert, dogging it a little bit?
That. I mean, that's something that Robert Quinn was known for, just kind of turning it on game day.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And I don't think a guy like Eberflus is gonna scoff at him for that one.
No, yeah, exactly. Like right now with Robert Quinn, they kind of got to take, especially if he does want to leave, and they want to keep him, like they got to take what they can get with him. So As long as he's there on game day and putting pressure on the fucking quarterback, that's all that really matters.
Yeah, and I mean, we're running a little short on time. We should probably keep this fairly clean. But I guess one thing we haven't brought up, and it was just brought up in the chat, was Lucas Patrick. That was something we kind of learned of while we were at camp. We knew there was a little bit of an injury, but we kind of learned that he was going to be out for a good majority of camp. That bodes it's not great when we are where we are in offensive line. Like we were just sitting here kind of talking about the positives with the offensive line, but a guy like Lucas Patrick was supposed to kind of be the centerpiece. He was kind of the big free agency signing early on in the process. So it's going to be interesting to see how he comes back to speed once he's back and if he's immediately thrown in there, you know what I mean, and given that role. He did run with those guys in OTAs and whatnot, and obviously they ran in pads that one practice. So like obviously he's gotten a little bit of a taste of it, but does that injury affect his snapping? Is that maybe Eric Kramer really shows out and then you toss him maybe a guard and put like a Schofield outside, or maybe Schofield's your sixth guy off the bench? There's a lot that still has to play out here, but it's nice to see these young guys kind of get a crack at it. You know what I mean? And it's going to be nice to see how much depth we actually have because, like you said, that was the biggest concern coming in. People can go at you for that, but like that's a very, very legitimate concern because up until a day before training camp, we didn't have two legit starters. So, I mean.
Yeah. No, I mean, that I'm still waiting to see on the whole offensive line situation. We got a preseason game coming up in a week and a half, 10 days, not even. So yeah, no, I guess that all remains to be seen.
Yeah. So do you have any final thoughts? It's kind of all I got here.
And I Tristan Ebner was great. Cole Kmet was someone that stood out. ESB talked about all my top 5 standouts, both the DBs drafted in the second round. So yeah, I think we covered everything.
Yeah, no, honestly, if a guy like Braxton Jones pans out, this draft class looks better than originally thought. You know what I mean? Like that's a late round left tackle, and those are not easy to find. But I guess that's gonna do it for this week. We'll be back next week. We are going to be going weekly at this point. We are in the thick of it, my friend. So if you enjoy the podcast, be sure to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If they have a rating system, go ahead and rate us on there. Be sure to subscribe. We're available on most all podcasting platforms. Apparently when you put on Anchor, it just sends it like freaking everywhere. Even if you're listening on Google Play, on your fucking Nokia S3 or some shit, I don't know. You can hear us. You can hear these guys. Olap Desai, Velus Jones going to the Hall of Fame. Book his spot in Canton now. Absolutely agree. But I've been Duke Coughlin. You can follow me at that pod guy Duke on Twitter. I've been joined by Lucas Perfetti as always at Lucas Perfetti 46, and be sure to follow the pod at Barely There Pod. Follow us on YouTube. You know the shtick.
Yeah, thanks for everyone that jumped in on YouTube. It looks like we're getting more people coming over from Twitter to YouTube. And that's how you can comment. I don't know what StreamYard's deal is, but that's awesome. So definitely keep coming in and joining us. It makes things fun, especially in this time when there's not like games to talk about.
We always enjoy the feedback. If you want to if you want to see like good interaction, go rewatch the draft show. Like that's the type of shit we live for. But yeah, that's all I got. And bear down.